is on. When I was younger, yeah, that's on, okay. When I was younger, I would draw. A lot. It was one of the only things that would keep me quiet as a kid. I was pretty hyperactive. I would love to draw anything that came to my mind, whether that would be a dragon or spaceships or something between the two. When I was at school, I would be so bored out of my mind, I would draw a doodle whenever I had a chance on the side of my paper. And when I was at home, I could sit there for hours just putting on paper what I was coming up with in my mind. I would love to focus on the little details and make everything appear just right so I could make it exactly how I was imagining it. Sometimes, though, I would focus a little too much on those details. It would get pretty bothersome, actually. Sometimes I would get so flustered about it that I would end up throwing fits or even crying just because I was doing the thing I loved. It didn't make a whole lot of sense, but I didn't really give it much thought. I thought it was something I would grow out of. I was an elementary schooler after all. I didn't grow out of it. Drawing wasn't the only thing that would set me off. It could be anything, really. Everyday things, menial tasks. When I was in 4th or 5th grade, we would get homework packets for the week instead of giving individual assignments at the end of each day. So me disliking homework as much as I did, I would try to get as much done I could the first day so I wouldn't have to deal with it the rest of the week. So every day when I got home from school, I would open up my English packet, start working on it. They're relatively simple. Again, this is elementary school. I usually could get through them pretty easily. It would still take me a while, but I could do it. Every now and then, though, there would be a problem that I would come across. Maybe a paragraph I have to write, or I have to define a word based on its root and suffix. Yeah, I could do those things as well, but sometimes they would stump me. I would get a little stuck thinking about it. If I didn't really understand it completely, I would keep trying to think about it until I did. Because to me, if I didn't completely understand it, then I wasn't really learning. Of course, though, this wasn't always the best thing to do. I would get so obsessed about having to think about these things and understanding them that I would spend hours just sitting there staring at my paper without getting a single thing done. Sometimes I would go the whole night without doing a single problem just because I couldn't move on from a question I had questions on. My parents and I obviously didn't really like this, but we kind of just thought of it as ADHD, which is understandable. How are we supposed to know what it is if it's not really talked about. So, come freshman year of high school, things are going well. Yeah, it was stressful, but I was getting good grades. I had friends. I did marching band. It wasn't until second semester, though, that, this is when we still had semesters, now it's weird, but second semester of high school, freshman year, when things got kind of difficult. I couldn't focus at school. I mean, it's always been hard for me, but this time it was a little different. It wasn't that I was having a hard time focusing on the subjects, or even that I didn't understand them. I did. It was more, my attention was being taken up by something else. I was kind of just like in elementary school, I was worried about whether I was understanding things. So, again, I would get home, try to do my homework, but I wouldn't get a lot done. As the weeks would go by, I would fall further and further behind, and the anxiety just got worse and worse, until I couldn't handle it anymore. I started failing classes for the first time in ever. I felt horrible about myself because I felt like I was giving up on everything I had worked so hard to achieve, even though, it's still just freshman year. I would get so upset at home because I wasn't able to do the things that I wanted to properly. Sometimes I even had trouble just talking to my friends. At some point, I stopped talking to them altogether. For the next year or so, I wouldn't talk to any of my friends at school. Sit alone at lunch every day, just because I was too afraid, too nervous to walk up to them all of a sudden after not having done anything with them for the past a year. That's when we finally decided to go to my psychiatrist. We went there and they diagnosed me with OCD. I'm sure many of you had heard that term before, and I had as well, but I never really understood what it meant. When you hear the term OCD, you usually, what comes to mind is something maybe around the lines of symmetry or organization. If a person sees a book on a bookshelf that's kind of tilted to one way, somebody might say, "Man, that book is bothering me so much. It's really triggering my OCD." And yeah, that can be OCD, but for everyone that has it, it's a little different. And it's not just about symmetry or organization. An analogy that my therapists use a lot, which I think works out pretty well, is OCD is kind of like having a fishing net in your head. People without OCD will have thoughts that come all the time, and they'll just process them and move on. But a person with OCD, when a thought comes through their mind, some stuff might get stuck in there. They might think about it a little too much. That's kind of in a basic sense what it does to you. You'll start thinking about something so much that it becomes worrisome. Even if it's something ridiculous, like if I leave this carpet here, someone's going to slip and break their neck on the floor. As highly improbable as that is, that could be a real worry for someone with OCD. So, if someone saw a knife on a kitchen counter, let's say, they would probably walk past it and say, I should probably put that knife away. I don't want anyone getting hurt by it if it falls or anything. So they'll put the knife away, and that'll be it. But if a person with OCD went through the same situation, after they put the knife away, they may think, maybe I didn't put it away right. Maybe it's still loose. So they'll go back and check on it. And after they do that, they'll feel fine about it, but maybe a few minutes later, they'll think again, well, maybe someone moved the knife after I put it back. Maybe it's loose again. So they'll go back a second time, make sure the knife is still there, which it is. This can go on and on. Sometimes it'll take hours of just going back and checking, make sure the knife is there, just so you're 100% sure that nothing bad's going to happen. Well, I don't think anyone's really ever 100% sure about anything. So you can probably see how this would be detrimental to someone's life. And it's not just knives or injuries that people with OCD get worried about. It could be anything. About whether you're smart or whether you're going to do good at a public performance. Yeah. So, when I first got diagnosed with OCD, my parents and I didn't really know what to do. My mom's a doctor, but even she had to do some research on how to treat it. It's really just not widely known what it is. At first, we went to a therapist to see if that would help get some worries off my head. And it did help, but it didn't really work. Because even if the therapist is really good, if they don't know how OCD works, or if they don't specialize in it, they're probably not going to be able to help that much, because OCD isn't very logical. After that, we tried a specialized OCD therapist. Again, it helped, but it didn't really work. Eventually, we got notified that I'd been accepted into a UCLA IOP, which is Intensive Outpatient Program. Basically, I would leave school halfway through the day, every day, and go to LA, where I would spend 3 hours going through intensive one-on-one therapy. Again, even though this is one of the best OCD programs in our country, in the world even, it still didn't really work. It wasn't until they told me that if I wasn't getting better soon, they would have no choice but to send me to New York for a inpatient program where I would spend 24 hours each day going through therapy until I got better, that I really started to open up. It was kind of the last straw for me. I was tired of OCD dictating what I did in my life and what I didn't. The reason it wasn't working before wasn't because the techniques they were telling me and teaching me weren't effective or because they were bad therapists. It was because I wasn't ready to make that jump. OCD is, in a simple sense, based on fear. So to beat it, you really need to face all of your darkest fears. It's a pretty simple process, it sounds like, but it's really not easy. Once I started opening up, though, I could feel myself get better. I was feeling a little more confident in myself and my abilities to do what I want in life again. OCD is challenging, as I said. But it's not impossible to deal with. After a few months of giving more details and being more open to my therapists, I was admitted out of the inpatient program, or outpatient program, I mean. My condition was better. I was able to do my work again. I still didn't have stellar grades, and I had to make new friends or tell old ones what happened. My life would probably never be the same after this, but that's okay, because I made a decision when I started opening up. I decided that no matter what happens, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try to have a happy life. Whether bad things happen, whether they don't, it doesn't matter. I wasn't going to let my fear dictate what I did anymore. And you don't have to either. Thank you.